Okay. So Melanie may be late. Is that what the message was, Rhonda?
Yes.
Okay. She came by this morning and picked up a package. There's been made a couple of small changes to it, so we've got a new one for her. But she wasn't sure if she would be back by 1:30. And for those of you who aren't aware, Brass is in the hospital. So he's been in the hospital for a week. So
Why did they just shut them?
this morning he was going there, right?
You're live.
Okay.
Why? Only 129. Yeah, it was rhetorical. It was rhetorical.
It never happens when it's not glitchy. So you're being prepared.
Couldn't help it, have to throw it out, yeah, but it's nice that you think that they required an answer. I really appreciate that. Thanks.
The mayor will never go unanswered.
Maybe I'll pull a Don Trump and just do some wacky stuff.
You can pull a Don Trump and say,
Please don't.
I didn't lose the election. I'm a winner.
So you'd have to put your name in to be able to say that.
Yeah, that's true. It'd be hard. You'd have a tough argument if you didn't put your name in. Okay.
I have 1:30. No, how are you doing?
Sure.
No,
I'm good.
That's okay. I'll call this meeting to order. With that, I would entertain a motion to the agenda for the the agenda to be adopted as presented. Thank you, Councilor Stickle. All in favor? That is carried. We have one business item. 3.1.
Yeah.
Mr. Neal, I'm just going to turn it over to you.
So as we've done before, the intent of today is just to provide a high-level overview of what's in the budget right now as it sits, where we're at, what's in for capital. The intent would be following today that you guys take the package home, go through it. If you've got any questions, concerns, ideas, changes, all those types of things, then we'll have that discussion next week, and with the final budget on this in December the 2nd.
Yes.
So, and just to do one last go through to make sure you're comfortable with it. So with that, I'll start. We're just starting on the overview page. So we put it together, and it's actually come together not too bad. Based on what we've got in here. So right now, as the budget sits, there is a deficit of $8,713, $35,000 deficit in 2022, and a $260,000 in 118, which isn't necessarily out of line. Quite often, the second and third years we haven't focused quite as much on. So as I said, we would anticipate that we will present this budget to council for approval at the December 8th council meeting. And we will approve the 21 operating and capital budgets and accept the 22 and 23 operating and the 22 to 25 capital budgets for information. So we do have to, at the end of the day, different than our provincial and federal governments, we have to have a balanced budget. We can't approve a budget that's not balanced. So that will be
next year
for the one we approved for 21. Yeah. So highlights, start with the revenue. So in this budget right now, as it sits, there is a 2% tax increase. Every 1% of tax increase brings in about $28,360. So that's assuming no change to assessment. That's everything staying status quo. As you're aware, we've applied to increase our AltaGas franchise fee by 2.5%. So that should bring in an estimated $38,000 additional revenue. We are anticipating a decrease on our return on investment of $24,000. So that's a decrease in revenue. Primarily from the two things. Primarily, we're not carrying the bank balance we did. We did that $2 million worth of infrastructure projects. So we're not carrying as high a bank balance. And as you may have known, the interest rates dropped. You know, we weren't getting huge interest rates, but we were at, I think, 2.55% on our general account, which now is 0.5, I believe. So, so between the two, that's what we anticipate we will lose on our interest, our investment interest. Turning the page, revenue for administration that we got included. So as you guys are aware, 2021 is an election year, and we usually will run the election for PLRD, and they usually provide us with funds to do that. Rhonda, Winona, and Caitlin have been doing some webinar election training, and there may be a referendum, or what do you call them, referendums? Referendums
And a Senate vote.
and a Senate vote. The province is looking at putting on and tagging on to municipal elections. I think the referendum type votes are more along the lines of whether, well, I don't know if it's separate. That could be one. I don't know if they're going to be able to move that quick, but I think even looking at whether we want to establish a Alberta provincial police force, whether we want to pull out a CPP and have our own Alberta pension plan. So the province, I think on those big ones, they're looking at wanting to have some sort of referendum vote on them. So there's no guarantee or confirmation that those will happen, but there's discussion that there will be some potential referendum. Welcome. You guys are way over.
Great.
We just got started, Councilor Jensen, so.
And does that mean that they would be paying for?
Yes, yeah, we haven't included any revenue there, but if there is going to be those revenues, the expectation is that the province will provide every municipality with dollars to operate those elections for them. So, so we don't know for there. We do have an increase in, and when I say increase, it's an increase over last year's budget. Everything's in reference to the 2020 budget. So there's a new package there, Councilor Jensen, and we're just on the second page under administration. So it's slightly different from what you got, but not, there's a few tweaks to it. So, so we have an increase in rental and lease revenue of 7,500. That's because we are anticipating the full year Reality Bites lease, and we've added the $850 for the Checkle Greenhouse lease on that property. So that brings us $7,500. We are at this point in time, and this is I talked to Jordan yesterday. They're budgeting using status quo MSI. May not be what transpires, but we have status quo in on the operating side. Special areas industrial tax transfer is the same as it has been, 200,000. Yeah, Jordan's very comfortable with that number. I know they had hoped in 2020 to actually increase that transfer, but things happened and they weren't able to. But I know talking with Jordan yesterday, he still is thinking there is a possibility that they may be able to increase that transfer to municipalities. So this is on the conservative side. If there is some extra dollars, so be it. MSI capital, we have reduced from 2020 levels by 28,000, and that's just based on a projection they had given us before. And again, same as the operating, they gave us a projection, but with the deficit and where we're at, no guarantees that will come through.
Considering that we have no projects.
The only capital project that we are looking at that would use MSI in 2021 is the fire engine.
Oh,
Our share of the fire engine. And we probably would be fine, I think, and I don't have that with me. I think we've got some residual MSI from previous years that we haven't fully expended. So that's certainly an option there. Federal gas tax, we're using the same as we were allocated in 2020, which was 146,000. We do have a grant application and process through FCM for asset management assistance. Council approved that application a couple of months ago, and it's in. I'm not sure when we'll hear. There's many applications in the. So that would be for $40,000 on a $50,000 project. We have drawn from 20. We've got right now in this budget drawn from surplus $20,000. That would be something as we move through the budget. I guess my vision of that, so we didn't spend any money on tax incentive in 2020 or demolition incentive in 2020. So that money wasn't spent. My vision, with the way it sits now, we're bringing that $20,000 in and expending $20,000 this year. We haven't bumped up the amount in those categories. My vision in a perfect world would be if we could start to establish a reserve on the demolition incentive side, because we know that we've got some demolition challenges coming down. So if we can work it, it would be nice to leave the $10,000 demolition incentive in reserve, and that would be a $10,000 hit to fix in the budget then. So, and then technically we would have $20,000 available for demolition. But we know that that's going to be a challenge as we move forward. So police, just it's a 3-year average of where they're at. Fire, again, 3-year average, and that revenue is revenue that is derived from special areas. So that's part of our cost share agreement. The one thing to note is the training partnership grant that our firefighters have been using for the last number of years. And in 2020, we got 13.6 is being eliminated by the province. So when we get to the fire side expenditure, you'll see an increased cost on the training because that those grant dollars are not there anymore. So bylaw enforcement, the one thing that's still in here, the way it sits right now is that using the same business license structure we used in 2020. So it hasn't incorporated any changes as suggested by the business hub at this point in time. And part of it is just timing. It's hard to get out and find out from businesses where they would like to be, what their thoughts are on it. In terms of here in 6 weeks, we'll be having issuing business licenses. So it is based on 2020 fees. Same with dog license, it's same fees. That's just our 3-year average. Common services in revenue, we had budgeted in 2020 to establish an emergency generator at the public workshop. It's one of the projects we didn't get done. So our intention is to defer that money into reserves because we didn't spend it this year, and then pull it back and put that project on the table in 21. There's a few cases like that you'll see as we move forward. The airport, it anticipates the suite rented for the full year. This year was a part year. We had a tenant move out, and then we had a tenant move in late in August. It still has the MSI, the weather station project in here. That's been carried forward for a number of years. And we've also hoping that we can get some grant funding. We'll be looking for some grant funding to replace the airport lighting. So the lighting on the runway, trying to upgrade those. So those are all grant specific. If we don't have the grant funding, then they won't move forward at this point in time. Water rates, Henry Kruger is increasing their water rates to 289 per cubic meter from 283 per cubic meter.
As was indicated.
Yes, that's kind of their long-term plan. It's a 2% increase across the board. We're going to bring in actually a little bit less. We anticipate still, even with that increase that we charge, bringing in less. It's just when we look at our 3 years worth of water use for 18, 19, and what we're projecting to 20, usage is down. So
It was down in 2020?
yeah. We had a big year we had a fairly large year, and that's why the 3-year average has changed. I think it was 2016, we had a fairly dry year, and I think our water consumption was up in the 360,000 cubic meters. We've been right around, this anticipates around 275,000 cubic meters, so.
I just can't find like up this year, like the actual usage, just the amount of people.
Yeah.
Gardening and stuff like that. But, and at home, yeah.
I think, you know, with, I don't think people are watering as much, and whether it's at the cost of water or not. And I think the other big difference is now, you know, any appliance you buy, whether it's a toilet, whether it's a washing machine, whether it's a dishwasher, they're all efficient, right? So you're using less water. So we are anticipating less water usage, so down around the 275,000 cubic meters. No changes in this budget to the fixed fees. So fixed fees will remain $55 per billing period. Sanitary sewers, same thing. It's a 3-year average of what we brought in. It's down from what we've been budgeting, but we've been budgeting around 270 and we've only been reaching the 260 mark. So we brought it down to 260. Their fixed fees remain the same at $30 a billing period. Garbage collection, again, we have a contract that we entered into for 2020, 21, and 22. So those rates, we are collecting enough. So the fixed fees for garbage collection will remain the same at $11 per billing period, and that will cover the cost of the collection. Regional waste, we've left it at 2020 levels. And I know talking to Councillor Campion the other day, they haven't approved their budget, but he indicated to me that he believes the requisition will stay the same as it did in 2020, which was 301,000. So we generate the 301,000 by on our utility invoices at $37.50 per billing period. So if it stays the same, there'll be no changes to that rate either. If they increase their requisition, then we'll look at increasing that portion of the utility bill. If they decrease their requisition, we would look at decreasing the utility bill. But he believes, Councillor Campion believes it will be the same. FCSS, as far as we know, our provincial grant will remain at the same level of 89.8. And we do have that Alberta Health Services grant. We got $10,000 in 2019. We transferred that to reserves, and we got the other 10,000 this year, and we've transferred it into reserves. They haven't expended any money. That what they call network. They haven't come forward with any recommendations for spending that money. So we're anticipating that will come forward in 21, and then we will pull that revenue back into deal with those plans. Cemetery is the 3-year average. We haven't changed the rates or brought new rates. It's the 3-year average. Commercial building lease, that's the hub. So we've got a lease agreement with the HLC for $24,000 a year. 21 will be year 2 of the budget. And what we've done there is we basically offset the $24,000 by the operating costs. And what we've done, for example, if the operating costs on the business hub for us come to $15,000, we are going to transfer $9,000 into a capital reserve, so that the 24 is offset. And then we've got that money there. We do have some repairs and maintenance in the business hub here in the actual building, but we know that the roof is probably one that will need some significant work or replacement. So I thought when we set it up this year that if we could slowly, whatever, rather than showing a profit on the rental, whatever we can slide it into a reserve, and then we have that money to deal with any capital replacements that may come up. So we are assuming at this point in time that the visitor center will open as normal as it is. Whether that happens or not, we will see. If it does, we will bring in, we're using the 3-year average that we would have been using in 2020. So that's primarily ice cream sales, right there, that 19.7. The good news this year is our Centennial Place advance from special areas is complete as the end of 2020. So that will mean rather than giving us a check for $97,000, we will get a check for $187,000 in 2021. User fees, we're planning at this point in time to leave them at 2020 levels. And throughout the budget, you'll see for the most part on rentals, we use kind of a 3-year average of what the revenue has been on those facilities. Foxley Park, the same, reflects a 3-year average. Parks, here's one there was 2 projects that we didn't get completed in 2020. Council did allocate $50,000 for walking trail enhancements. And we had $8,000 in our Hector King Hunter budget to fix up a bunch of irrigation issues there. We did not deal with either one of them. So our intention is we'll transfer that money into reserve, pull it back, and the attempt would be to get it done in 2021. Part of the problem with these, especially the irrigation at Hector King Hunter Park, John's our irrigation guy, and of course he went off, and he has the expertise there, and we were running short, so we didn't get to that one, and that's partly why we didn't get to the walking trails either. We just didn't have the time to get to those projects. So we've been looking at doing those mostly in-house. Playground program, speaking with Gwen and Ange, I don't know if you guys have had any feedback from people, but they are looking at operating a similar program to what they did this year. So kind of half days, that's Epic, sorry, we're talking Epic. So kind of half days in the mornings generally, and then doing some afternoon stuff more with the community. Whether it's yoga in the park or some of those other programs they tried. So we're trying to get away from basically the daycare. We didn't get a lot of feedback, or in the office, we didn't get a lot of feedback that people really missed not having that full day program.
Was enrollment down in those? Because I did get feedback.
Enrollment was down, but we didn't know what enrollment would be in COVID.
The feedback I certainly got was the intention for these programs, they would run on days off school, so they could take their school age kids there.
Yeah.
And once in half a day, we would need to make accommodations for them anyway, so they would.
Yeah, we didn't have huge numbers, Councilor Olson, but we weren't sure whether that was COVID related and people staying home or not. But I'm sure that was part of the package. If people needed a caregiver for the day, that program didn't fit that requirement. So it's certainly open for discussion and changes. I just been speaking with Gwen and Ange. They like the fact that they could get out and do some of those other programs in the afternoons at Hector King Hunter Park with everybody, with adults, with seniors, with kids. And I did personally, and I don't know if we had a lot of feedback, Councilor Olson, at the office that from people who really needed that. So if you're aware of people who are looking for that full day program to be reinstated, certainly have them contact Angela and let her know. And
Do they do them on the same day? Like do the morning program and then do the all-inclusive one in the afternoon the same day, so that the kids could
possibly,
partake in the
yeah,
whole thing?
yeah, that might be an option.
It'd be desirable for,
Okay.
the epic days when kids are dropped off there, I'm certainly not there all day, but I
Yeah.
haven't, if you keep saying Gwen and Angela, I haven't seen them there. I didn't realize they participated in those during the
Well,
day. It was usually.
Angela was generally there to kind of oversee, but we had 2 students that managed those programs. And I'm thinking off the top of my head, our numbers for those programs it started slow. We only had a couple of kids to start with. I think by the end of the summer, we were getting 7, 8 kids per morning, so. But it did start really slow, and again, I don't know if that was just a little bit of COVID and people not sure, wanting to put their kids in with other kids that they didn't know, and we didn't mind that it started slow because it was a whole new game to us, so the smaller it was, the better. I look at Mel, Councillor Jensen, in terms of whether there's a, demand for childcare.
I didn't really receive a lot of feedback with regards to the EPIC and childcare bit. Childcare was all over the place with COVID. We were open, we were closed, we were open, we were closed. So I think it kind of, with every family, it was a unique year for everything.
So make a note that that's what's anticipated right now is the modified program, but certainly is open to adjustments if that's where council wants to go. Centennial Place reflects our 3-year average rentals, bookings, and fitness center. It's getting close. We still don't have a ton of like birthday parties or those types of bookings. Our drop-in stuff, the pickleball is going like crazy, and but our volleyball and basketball are doing okay. Our fitness center is doing okay. It's not where it was a couple of years ago, but even last year, even 2019, our fitness center numbers had dropped for a reason. But it's now been back fairly steady. About, we're generating $1,700-1,800 a month revenue. Not as busy as it was in its heyday, but and we've had fairly positive comments from users in terms of that they can book a time. And they know they can go in and book a time versus showing up on there's, because as if you've been in our fitness center, it's not a big space. So a couple people are in there, and you come in with a couple of people going, oh geez, it's too crowded. And
Generally, if there's 2 people in there, I'm told they don't go.
yeah,
I can see
yeah.
2 other bodies in there.
unless they know each other really well and are buddies, and they don't seem to mind. But so that's kind of 3-year averages there. Community center, again, I think is one of our facilities that's going to be COVID impacted. So we took our 3-year average, which is around 41,000, and we basically said, okay, let's cut it in half. No, sorry, when I say 3-year average, we took the 3-year average for 17, 18, 19. 20 just would have thrown the numbers way out of whack. So we used the 17, 18, 19 and said, we're going to estimate we'll get 50% of what we normally get. And, we'll see as we move forward in the new year, how things go, where we're at. I'm still a little skeptical of that. That's a facility I think that's going to take a little bit longer for COVID to work its way through. I just don't see, even if things go really well and we get the numbers down and we take the restrictions off, I still think there'll be people hesitant to say, I don't know if I want to go into there. There's going to be 250 people in there. I might just stay at home. I think there's going to be people who.
If we keep going where we're going, there's going to be more restrictions anyway. I mean, not that it matters.
I'm being optimistic. Our
No,
numbers
I
have
know
been
what
coming
you're saying.
down.
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah, I know, but I mean,
Forever the optimist.
they talked about a 3rd wave the other day.
Did they?
So,
I haven't heard the 3rd wave. But
Well, I did hear.
I've heard, and you have to be careful what you read too. The stuff about the vaccines being available. Spring of 21. I read something that one of our Canadian ministers of health said they anticipated that they would have anybody who wanted to be vaccinated in Canada by the end of 21. Again,
They said this morning, Minister of Procurement, I think it was, for health, federally said, expect first shipments in the first quarter of 21.
Yeah.
I think I heard on the news something about maybe somewhat being back to normal about summer, fall
Yeah.
next year.
That's
What's
optimistic, I would say, but whatever, I mean,
and there'll be
and
people
I'm an optimist.
and there'll be a lot of people who won't want to get the vaccine, especially when it's fresh and new, and people will be going, I don't know if I wanna be a guinea pig, but, yeah, you take it, you try it.
Yeah.
So that one, so that's what we're estimating there. We're estimating we're not gonna be returned to full capacity. Of course, the Lions Hall, we're estimating $400 a month rental revenue. It will have some COVID effects. I think we're operating it now, and I think we have 2 bookings through to the end of December right now. We have
So
one.
what do you base that on? Like, cause we have.
We're just basing it on what we brought in, what the rental was from them last year.
Okay,
They paid us $4,800, so we just left the number the same. We've got 2 rentals upcoming in the next couple weeks, and that's, I think one might be $150 and one's $75. So, but again, that's impacted too in terms of gathering, so.
absolutely.
So I think that's most of the highlights on the revenue side. We turn the page on the expenditure side. We always talk about the salaries. So I'm just gonna walk you through this. It's a little bit different than normally, quite often, quite rightly, because we've got some changes in staffing. So our overall full-time salary reduction from the 2020 budget is $13,394. So that's the overall reduction. That includes negative 13 still includes grid step 4-5 staff, which is 11,345. So out of our 21 staff, 5 are eligible for grid steps. The other thing, we've got grid changes to 3 staff members, and that's an increase of 14,519. So what we're looking at doing is Dell is retiring on December 11th is Dell's last day. So he's been with us for 23 years. He is an operator 2, and he is at the top of the grid and has been at the top of the grid. So we are looking at Braden is our next senior operator. So we would like to move, Braden is an operator 3. We would move him into an operator 2. And he's at the top of operator 3. We would put him on the operator 2 grid. So he would have an increase from 2020 range, but he wouldn't be at the top. We wouldn't put him at the bottom because then he would be losing money. We'll put him on a step on the grid that will put him in a better spot. So that is one. The other grid change we're looking at is, of course, John is off, and John's been off since February. We don't anticipate any necessarily good news there. As far as I know, John's still in the hospital, so he's been in the Calgary hospital for a week or 2 now. So we don't anticipate that. So what the grid anticipates is moving Kevin. Kevin has been acting foreman since John went on disability. So we moved Kevin. He's normally in the category we call lead hand. So we moved him up 1 step into the foreman grid. And there's not a lot of change between the grid, not significant change. So when we moved him up to step 4 on the grid of the foreman grid, and we would look at him going to 5 and having him stay there. We would continue to probably have him in an acting role until such time as something permanent happens with John, whether he is able to come back. There's a final decision whether work-wise he's able to, or work-wise he's going to stay on disability and not be back. And then we can look at making that a permanent move. But we're not looking at replacing someone in the lead hand grid. But we are looking at hiring another full-time person as an operator 3. So on the lower grid. So, and the other one is just a strict, Raylene has been at Centennial Place for a couple of years now. And when I was looking at the grid this year, I, quite honestly was embarrassed at what we were paying her. We we're paying her somewhere in the $18 something an hour. And we have some summer staff at the pool who make more than that. And again, no disrespect to the staff that filled that role before, but Raylene's got some good skills and good experience and has taken over, done a lot more. We don't have to babysit that facility as much as we used to. So we're looking at moving her, changing her grid and increasing her grid. And so she will see probably the biggest increase of all. I think she's at 18 something an hour right now, and that we would move her into another, change the grid structure to fit our next lowest grid structure, in which I think starts, step one is $21 or $22 an hour. So that's those three changes for Kevin, for Braden, and for Raylene, will be an increase of $14,519. By hiring the two replacement staff at the lower grid at the first step, we anticipate saving a difference of $35,000. And there is one staff, we have reduced the hours of work. So there's a reduction of $4,000 there. So overall, if council approves this, it does include the grid steps for 5 staff, the grid changes we talked about. There is no COLA included in this budget as it sits. And a 1% COLA adjustment, if council wanted to award a COLA adjustment, is $11,563.
Who is the other, hiring 2 replacements?
So we would hire a replacement for Dell,
Okay,
and we would hire a replacement for John Henry.
okay.
We would just be hiring them in the lower end at a different scale.
And if somebody's acting, are they getting the salary that?
What we did with Kevin last year is he is on the lead hand grid. We moved him up to the foreman grid and put him in a position where he saw an increase. We didn't put him at the
Yeah.
end of the grid, but I think he was on pretty high up there. I think he was on the fourth
Yeah,
step.
and that's good, because, if they're acting, they're basically taking the
Yeah, no,
responsibility.
Kevin has done a great job.
Yeah.
Kevin has stepped right in and done a great job there. Kevin is a different person than John, and they both have different strengths, but he's done a great job. Kevin is, in discussions with Kevin though, he now realizes there was a lot of responsibility that he didn't have, that he's taken, and he has indicated to us, just that doesn't necessarily cut it. You give me a few $1,000s more a year, I'm like, it's not worth it. So I'm hoping Kevin, will be able to work something out with Kevin, but I'm not looking at changing the grid structure and say, that's where we're at, that's where our grid structure is, Kevin, that's the best we can do. I'm sorry, but I know that, I think Kevin said, a lot more calls, a lot more responsibility, taking care of things that, even though he was second in charge and did a fair bit of that, especially when John was gone, I think being there full time, and again, not having, an experienced guy there, he missed that too. So.
Or it'll be different when somebody's hired for them too.
Yeah, and another full-time person there too would certainly make a difference. So that's where salaries are at this point in time, as this budget sits. Seasonal and part-time positions, we have looked at in this budget increasing returning staff by 50 cents. So I'll use an example. If Lacey Rose came back to be the pool manager and she was making $20 an hour, last year we would give her $20.50. If Lacey Rose doesn't come back and let's say Madison LeClaire moves into that manager position, we would leave that at 20. So even though Maddie's returning, she's stepping into a different grid, and there would be an accommodation increase on that already. So we still, I think we're getting close. We've been adding 50 cents an hour. We still won't compete with special areas with their seasonal parks. We lose a lot of our staff to seasonal parks there because we're paying our high school university kids $16, $50, $17 an hour, and I think they can go to work for John in parks out there for 21-ish. So We lose a lot of them that go there, and that's the nature of the beast. We're not gonna be able to compete with that. So that's, I think compared to all other seasonal wages in the community, I think we're not in a bad spot. It's tough with special areas, so.
Well, there's not many places you can go without experience and make that kind of money.
Yeah,
I mean,
Yeah.
you have to start at 15, but
yeah,
16, but that's
Yeah.
where everybody's at.
that's right, yeah.
15.
Yeah, so that's where we are with salaries. Utilities, basically, we've across the board, when in any expenditure category, we've taken the 3-year average of facilities and we've increased it by 5%. And the reason the increase partly is that our numbers are a little off this year because some of our facilities weren't fully utilized. But there also is, I believe, another federal carbon tax that bump, I think in April, another $10, which I think is 3 or 4 cents on petroleum, and I think it's a cent per gigajoule more. So there is supposed to be another carbon tax bump, which will impact natural gas and petroleum products. So power, I think we're gonna be pretty good, and it'll be really interesting this year with some of our facilities that we've converted the lights on, what type of difference it's gonna make. Water and sewer, again, using the 3-year average. Petroleum, we have a 3-year average, and I didn't increase it because of the carbon tax. And I know when we started the year, we lowered our petroleum costs significantly because we were down paying 80 cents a liter, 70 cents a liter, where the years before we were $1.20 a lot of the time. We're still here in hand. I don't know, I haven't checked. Last time I checked, it was around $1. I know, but I was up in Edmonton on the weekend and it's 82.9. So I think at Costco in Edmonton was 76.9. So I'm not anticipating that petroleum to change much. So I think our 3-year average, because we had in 18 and 19, we were paying more than we'll pay this year. I think it'll blend out. We'll evaluate as we go through, and if we're off on our assumption, then we'll deal with it at spring budget adjustments. So council honorarium, we've left at 2019 rates because council froze them for 2020. What we've done with the technology allowance, just to make it a little bit smoother, is it still is $1,000 a term per counselor. We're just going to allocate $250 a year. I think we did it twice with you guys at $500. We're just going to put $250 a year in for the 4 years. So the technology amount is still the same. And I look to you as council whether you think that's satisfactory or not. I know it's not if you have to buy your materials, but to your laptops or your iPads or whatever you're using. But I know nowadays so many people have them anyways. So
I think I'm fine. You're using it personally anyway.
yeah,
I mean,
yeah. So we're leaving it at 1,000, no change there.
so that just, so that's just gonna be a budget amount, just we'll leave it at that.
Yeah.
And that's a good way.
Yeah. It'll be $250
A
a
yearly
year,
instead of
a yearly one. Yeah.
Way better idea, yeah. Good job.
Yeah. Travel and subsistence, so we returned it to pre-COVID levels. So that's 20,700. So that's all conference, meetings, conventions, etc. 2020 is, as you know, we've lowered it, and even then, I think, we might expend $1,000 this year in travel and subsistence, 1,000, 1,500. So that's going back to what the budget was in 2019 and what it originally was in 2020. Again, lots of assumptions there too, because at the end of the day, I know some of the conferences have already been suspended for 21. The one I know is the water and wastewater conference has been suspended and is now virtual. AUMA is usually later on in the year. And again, it'll be with a new council, and whether that council wishes to attend or not attend because they usually will wait until after the election before they have a number. So we've returned it to 2019 levels. Public relations, we've increased by $2,300, primarily because in the last year of a council term, we provide council with a gift, small token. And we do have 3 long-term employee retirements. So we have set aside some dollars for that. So it's always we don't have a policy on that, so it's always difficult, when a long-term employee leaves, there is no obligation as an employer. You don't have to provide them with a gift. You don't have to do anything, but as a good employer to, service someone who's been here 25 years, 30 years, typically, we provide them with some sort of token. So, so we've included $1,500 for that, for those 3 long-term employee retirements. So
That should maybe be under $1 million or something.
well, yeah, where it goes,
That'd be a good council.
yeah, well, it is the gift. We always acknowledge that gift coming from the town and coming from council. So, but yeah, we generally will collect dollars on our own as staff and by either chip towards a gift that council will be putting in or buying them something separate. So where it goes certainly can be
Yeah, doesn't
moved
matter.
so that we've got that in there council-wise. So that's kind of where council's at.
Just a
Yep.
question, I don't know if you addressed this. I know our mileage, do we just I don't know where it's at, like, do we just follow what the province or do we have to? Is that how that works?
I don't know, we don't have to.
Okay.
We've left it, it's been at 50 cents a kilometer as long as I can remember.
And I don't know, I just don't know if it's something that should be visited once in a while. I'm just throwing it out there. I'm not saying we should have right now, but just.
I think it's fair.
Yeah.
The province is still
Standard.
50.5 cents.
So it's the same.
It seemed to probably 10 years ago, there was kind of a fairly sharp
Yeah.
adjustment to it. And then it's kind of, from what I've seen, settled down and stayed around that 50 cent.
It's just nice to stay on top of it.
Yeah,
Things,
we're
you know,
not
rather than-
behind. I don't
Okay.
believe we're behind.
Rather than getting away from me and also know how we got it.
Yeah, I don't believe we're behind
Okay,
there.
that was fine, just.
So administration, what's included in this budget, significant changes in this area, and we'll get to that. So the town's share of the medical clinic operating cost has reduced, $4,760, so a 3.8% decrease. So it will be $121,700. We have the Masonic Temple grant and the Roundhouse Society grant for the municipal portion of taxes in the budget. One of the positives is I will no longer be contributing to pension as of 21. So council will save any employer contribution to my pension in 21 and 22, 23. Travel and subsistence for administration, again, we return to 2019 levels.
I have a question.
Yeah.
You were a previous employee of the town.
Yeah.
From that?
Yeah.
You get a pension from that as well?
Same pension.
Same pension?
Yeah,
not
so-
two separate pensions?
So we belong to, staff belong to the local authorities pension plan. So when I started with the town in 92, I entered that pension plan. When I moved to Stony Plain, that pension plan transferred. When I moved back, it transfers, so.
It was a condition, actually, when, in his contract, that was a condition when we accepted his contract, because that was one of the, that it continue on with that. 'cause it
Oh, yeah,
just- it
Yeah,
just-
but you don't
it's
get
just
two
great.
pensions.
I get 2 pensions because the one that Chris is talking about, when I went to Stony Plain, they had AUMA had a separate pension plan in addition to LAPP called Apex. So we were able to join there, so I started there, and that was one of the conditions when I came here, when I negotiated with council, said, well, one of the things I would like to see when I come here is to be able to continue that pension. So I do have, the Apex one is a lot smaller than the LAPP one, but there is, I will receive 2 different pensions.
So is it a buyback or to get back in or?
No, but I didn't leave
Yeah, no,
Councillor
yeah,
Bowden, so I started in Stony and I've stayed on there. But both of those, they do work together, so when I terminate with LAPP, I have to terminate with Apex. So any pension contributions from the town towards those are done entering into 21, so. So there's a savings there. Telephone is increased by 3,500. We have VoIP phones, and every 4 years we have to pay for a subscription for those phones, yeah.
I should have looked at my contract.
So it's,
Starts out being a really good deal.
it's $3,500. The last one we bought was $3,500 for all of our phones. And that was for a 4-year deal. Usually you get a better deal the longer term you buy, and we bought a 4-year term last time, so. On the professional services side, we've increased the budget substantially by $75,000, and so the total amount there would be $153,200. So one of the things we have in there, a lot of IT stuff we have in there. So our AVG security expires and needs to be renewed. So that's a one-time, the $2,500 is a one-time license. This is the one I'm going to struggle. I'm going to leave it to Councillor Olson and or Director Armstrong. So it's called multi-factor authentication, and that's a software program, Councillor Olson, that is it what I call the software program, or it's a license?
It's Azure. You go right to
Yeah.
it.
Now that the town stuff all exists in the cloud, security is a lot more important. So this is why if you log in outside of the town building, it's just for town staff. You get hit on your phone that says, yes, I'm trying to log in. You just have to say, okay, is one piece of it. And then it's security basically with the cloud licensing. It's part of the Office subscription and all that as well. It's
Especially with working for home.
a necessary evil for massive convenience.
So we've got that budgeted. That's an annual fee. Internet hotspot upgrade of $10,000. So that's all town facilities. So that is basically an upgrade to the Wi-Fi systems in all of the buildings that are public accesses.
Is this a piece of that COVID communication grant or something that could be worked into?
Well,
Or is that already spent?
we haven't spent it. The COVID grant we got from the province and from the feds is, in my terms, a bit of a bonus. So it was $264,000. We've got the money. It's sitting in our bank account. We will, at the end of the day, have to account for it. And that could be one of the things we could account for, would be the hotspot upgrade. They've made it fairly open in terms of how we can use the dollars and how we can account for the dollars. So one of the things they've said is we could even, and I was talking to Councillor Stickel, one of the things you can do with it is, if council wished, if there were some not-for-profits who were impacted in 2020 and not able to operate due to COVID or severe restrictions on COVID, we could provide them with some of those dollars. The one that really opened it up for everybody was the province said, if at the end of December you have unpaid taxes, say we have unpaid taxes, which we always do, you could say, okay, we had $150,000 in unpaid taxes, so that's where we're putting $150,000 accounting ways against that. You still have to pursue normally, it doesn't let those people off the hook, but they made it pretty much unconditional. So we haven't necessarily gone through Councillor Olson and picked out all of the costs that we've had. We can use rental, we can look at the community center rental revenues normally are around $40,000 a year. Well, we're going to be around 10 this year. And you could basically say there's a difference of 30. We're going to allocate 30 to that 264. So it is pretty open as far as I'm concerned right now. It's bonus money. We have, because we got it, we did buy a few more preventative things. So we originally bought one backpack, disinfectant backpack at the arena, and they're $3,000. And then when we got this, we felt, well, it'd be nice to have a second one at Centennial Place. So we bought a second one. We bought some of the new hand sanitizers with the foot pedals and put them in facilities. We probably wouldn't have done that if we didn't have this money. But we'll be, if they hadn't opened it up, we would have been extremely hard pressed to account for the 264,000. Like direct COVID type stuff, whether it's PPE or sanitizer or communication things, working from home, we probably would have been hard pressed to come up with $25,000, $30,000. So I'm glad they opened it up so we can then spend it, account for it in other ways. So that's the internet spot, hotspot upgrade.
Sorry, does that have to all be spent this year, or can
No,
some of it be
no,
carried
yeah,
over and
yeah.
put into
Yeah,
residual?
yes, yeah. Yeah, I think we've got to middle of next year. I think we can use any expenditure or loss of revenue up till the end of March 2021, which is the government's fiscal year. So we have that in. We have looked at doing some technology upgrades in the council chambers. So, I don't know, I know Lori met with some Reality Bites people today, but we were talking about whether we get a device such as that even, maybe upgrade our projectors with some television screens. I'm not sure, Lori, if there was anything else that came out of your meeting this morning that was new.
No, actually, the meeting this morning was a little bit disappointing, but only in that I was looking for, I shouldn't say disappointing, that's the wrong choice of words. It was good. It was good information. We're just gathering information on how we can conduct business and have the public participate in council meetings and continue with the engagement process, considering the variety of venues that we're attempting to hold them in. So the size of and scope and noise bounciness of the community center to this room to be able, once COVID is over, because it's going to end, move everything back to council chambers and have newer technology there. So it has a mobile solution, but it also has to be very, very simple, because we do not have a full-time IT department to set up for everybody's meetings.
And I think with COVID and what's one of the things that's going to come out of COVID, I think that there probably is going to be an expectation that even once we're back in council chambers, that we have our meetings available for people to sit at home and watch on Zoom or YouTube or however we go through that process, because now that we started down that road, people are like, oh, this is pretty cool. I don't have to even get out of my house. I can sit there and participate. So
Case in point, my son, he watched
Council meeting?
our council meeting on last Tuesday. And he said, really cool. He said, it was a little hard to hear, he said, just because of the space, but he said, it was wicked. He said, I was glad to see that. And
That's good
somebody young like
Yeah.
him, if you get, that's the other part, you get that younger generation actually going, if I don't have to go physically, I might watch it. So,
So this little piece of technology is severely undersized for
Right.
building that size.
right.
And even the layout that we had, it was too big, the way that the tables were laid out, and knowing that sound and light and everything has an impact. So it was a test more than anything, but it was a good test. And it, when I say us, it's David Moll and I mostly there, because this is the fire departments or fire hall's piece of equipment that are really watching the capabilities and what it can manage and what it can't manage, and if we upsize it, will that be overkill for council chambers? Doing lots of that back and forth.
And not to go down a rabbit hole here, which I'm going to anyway. Just council meeting even at the community center, if we were in the alcove there, I know multimedia wise it creates more work to screen wise and all the rest of that, but they would probably do much better in there just as a smaller space, and it's a little more, it's a little quieter in there. So not saying that we should,
I agree.
just saying a
Ultimately,
consideration.
and if that's the way that we go, that's the way that we go, but ultimately we would like to be able to accommodate both without having to break the bank. So.
Right, exactly. So just.
yeah, no, the challenge, like I said, the challenge in the community center is, we are definitely showing the public perception of safe distancing. Could we squish things and bring them a little closer? Probably, but I think option wise, if no one can look at our council meeting and say we're not keeping safe distance from one another as we move forward, so. But yeah, we're gonna look at maybe changing the council meeting setup or the community center setup a little bit to box it in a little bit, so that's in here, and that's,
If I could just add to that a bit, once I dug into that, I think it's gonna cost us significantly less than I
Okay.
originally thought. Not less than what you have here, it might be more than what you have here, but significantly less than
than what you had.
I had.
Go big or go home.
So the other thing is we're looking to, is it, would I call it a server upgrade or a server replacement?
Oh, that's a discussion I haven't even had with yet, I think.
But I know Councillor Olson, as is working with us on the IT side, had recommended that. But what is it, would I call it a replacement or an upgrade?
A replacement.
A replacement.
Replacement.
Standard practice is to have 2 servers there, especially one that is of the age that's there. It's still operating. It doesn't work crazy hard to service the town, but it's of the age now where things will fail and it's going to be a massive amount of time and money to. Yeah, so if you have that running as a backup to.
So a redundancy for example.
Yeah. So that's what that is. And as I mentioned on earlier, so we've included the asset management project here for 50,000, of which our grant application is for 40. So that, those numbers are making a substantial increase to that budget. The other things on administration that we include, that we have right now in the budget is Palliser, our Palliser Regional Municipal Services contribution. They are looking at an increase of 3%, $950. And our demolition incentive and storefront incentive and tax incentive amounts are included in administration. So we've got the 10, 6, and 10 as an expenditure right now. If we're able to do some work to put this stuff into deferred and increase it, then those numbers might be able to be increased. The biggest one I'm concerned about, tax incentive, is an unknown. I'm okay with the storefront. We did 2 again this year and used that amount, but we've done a lot of storefront in town. Believe it or not, there's probably been 8 businesses that have utilized it, 8 to 10. So I'm comfortable with that amount. Demolition always scares me because 10's just a small drop in the bucket. So it'd be nice somehow to build that pocket up without, significantly impacting our taxpayers. Japanese student exchange, again, an assumption that we are going to do a program here. I don't have a clue whether we will or we won't. My gut says no, but we have the net in there. So that's the net cost, is $3,000. We do show $2,000 revenue and we do have $5,000 expenditures. So that's the net cost. That's in there right now. Tax recovery property. So that is the rental property we own that Mr. Groman lives in. We're making a slight change to it so it matches the way we do the business hub. So right now in 2020 budget, we would show $12,000 revenue and we'd show $6,000 expenditures and we'd show a profit of $6,000. So what we're doing is we're going to again transfer the residual difference into capital. So we have dollars there if we need to do some capital replacements and upgrades while they're living there. So
Any indication how long this will go
the rental,
on, as far as the tax recovery property?
well, that we call that a tax recovery property. So it is a piece of property the town owns.
Right.
So if council's satisfied with renting
Oh, yeah.
the building,
Yeah.
it'll go on as long as council's satisfied and the tenant's satisfied. If council at any time, that's our fitness center up there.
Yeah.
So if council decided at any one time they wanted to sell it, that's always an option. Or if the tenant moved out, then, it's the best time to make a decision to sell or re-rent it.
Because you're just taking rent or something.
Taking anything that would be seen as profit and moving it into reserve.
Yeah, I
For
just
that.
was wondering how healthy he is, if it's.
It's a $64,000 question, so. So police, again, as we've talked before, $48,000 cost to the Tallahana in 2021. I was talking with our fire chief yesterday, and the letter we sent to the Minister of Municipal Affairs, I did copy Nate Horner on it. And of course, our fire chief being the UCP president had Nate read it, and he was like, really, that's, yeah. So he was, and I've invited David, I said, if Nate's gonna be around, once session's out and around, I'd love to sit down and talk to him about how important MSI is to our sustainability, and we're talking right now $700,000. We collect $2.8 million in taxes. Well, that's a quarter of our taxes right there. That we would, if we didn't change anything, and so it's critically important. And even talking with Jordan Christensen, he said, I would fully suspect if MSI went to zero, I would fully expect that all of the urbans in special areas would be looking to dissolve. And I don't know and I know they're coming from the point that some municipalities, and there are some, are very wealthy. But it's a standard amount, so I know they get frustrated. We're giving and generally we're giving a rural that has $1 billion in reserves, MSI money. Like, is that a wise expenditure? But it's rare that municipalities are on the wealthy side. And I said to Dave, I'm okay with a change to, if you only want it to be used for core infrastructure, make that a requirement.
And that's what the problem is.
Yeah, and they've expanded it out, yeah.
sorry.
And if you wanted to even have some sort of needs assessment that you put in, yeah, go for it. Just a straight blanket, I just don't think cuts it, so.
That was Ed Stelmack's vision, I think, for it from the get-go, was fix your roads and sewers.
Yeah.
Your basic infrastructure, and let's get out of this infrastructure deficit.
Yeah.
And then people started using it for,
Well, and we've used it too.
And we have, no, I'm
We've
not
used it
saying,
for other things. I think our
but-
focus lately has been
For
infrastructure
sure,
based.
but fire trucks is a good example. I mean,
Yeah.
that's basic infrastructure.
Yeah.
That's something you need to have. So
Anyway, so that's, I just wanted to let you know that it did catch our MLA's attention, and so places in there, and as you read the letter, we did indicate you're looking at reducing our money, and yet, on the other hand, you're charging us like 48, going to 148 in 2024. So that's a significant change.
and expecting us to decline on taxes.
Yes, yeah. So fire department, in our expenditure side, we've increased the training to 23,400, which is a $13,000 increase. Because of no funding, we still they're still gonna continue to operate their training in a very similar fashion. It's not gonna be just HANA training, it's still the region training. And our fire association is going to manage that, and they will just, instead of us having a grant, they will charge each student who's attending a certain amount per course. And they're covering they're covering a healthy course fee that's probably equivalent to what it would cost to take the course in Vermilion. But of course, there's no travel, there's no accommodations, there's none of that involved. And the other thing that the association is doing is within that course fee, they are taking a portion of that and they are allocating it to the burn tower for repairs and maintenance and operations. So they'll be using propane as part of their training program. They'll be paying for the propane out of that fund. It won't be coming back to us. If there's any repairs or maintenance to the props or to the structure, they're hoping to build a fund up that then would be able to pay for that. So they're not coming back to the municipality saying, oh, we had spent $5,000 on propane last year, or we did this. So I think, a creative way of dealing with that. So
I have a question about that then.
Yeah.
So the $13,000 that we received
Yes.
from the E ECETP.
Yeah.
That was for the region, or was that specific to firefighters in Hannah?
That was for the region,
Okay, so,
but that was, so just let me explain, that was for the region, and then they used that to subsidize everybody who participated.
right. So why would the town of Hannah put all 13,000? Why wouldn't the regional other municipalities put in a?
The reason it's at 13,000 is, as I said, they've increased the costs per.
I understand
course.
that, but why is the town of Hannah the only municipality putting the 13,000?
No, the other,
Full amount.
well, we're putting that in, but the others will be charged the same amount. So like, for example, this course that they just started in October, NFPA 1001 is $2,000 a student.
Mhm.
We have 8 students in it.
Right, I'm not disputing that, I'm disputing.
Yeah, I know where you're coming from. that-
I mean, this is to offset the ECETP funding.
We also, but the ECTP, the grant didn't cover all of it.
No, then that's fine, okay, that's not the argument. The argument is, did every municipality get this ECETP funding and give it to,
No,
okay,
we got it
So-
on behalf of the partnership.
but why would it be the town of Hannah? That's my question, because this is a regional training. Why are the other municipalities not? I mean, maybe we pay 7 and the other municipalities make up the
So-
other 6. Am I not?
I think I don't know if I'm explaining it properly, so I know where you're coming from.
Because it sounds to me like the town of Hannah is making up
No,
the grant amount.
I think the difference, it just was a coincidence that it worked out. Like I said, before we used to run the course, and we would run the course and it would cost the people who took it, the grant would cover a lot of it, but they were running those courses for $500 per person.
Right.
Because it was subsidized by that amount.
Right.
I don't know if I'm probably not explaining it properly, but this is what David has come to me and said. We have 8 firefighters that are taking the 1001 and in 2020, 2021, and it's $2,000 a firefighter, so that's $16,000 right there.
So is it just coincidence that the E ECTP that's eliminated is 13.6 and this is 13?
Yeah,
Is that just coincidence? It is.
yes. And I know it's very similar, but like I said, they've really, well,
And don't get me wrong, I'm
Really
not, I'm
changed.
just saying if this is a regional thing and if it is actually to
It's-
offset this, then I don't think the town of Hannah should be the one that's putting in full
Yeah.
full
no,
funding.
it's going to impact all of the fire departments in the region.
Okay, and that's fair. As long as,
Because
because it is regional,
Yeah.
as long as the rest of the region are putting a fair share. of that there.
They'll be paying exact same amount as we are per student.
Yeah, good enough.
So that's there. The other thing that's big in the fire department is the fire department is looking at replacing their 2001 rescue truck. Engine rescue, I get it. mixed
At
up.
rescue, I think it was,
Rescue.
yeah.
So it's a crazy amount to buy a new one. Is estimated at $750,000. It's on its 20th year. So they've come forward to both Special Areas and I with this request. What we've done at this point in time is we're looking at allocating $375,000 of MSI to the engine. And when that happens, we will use that dollar. Special Areas has said in 21, they're not able to fund their $375,000. And they said they cannot commit to 22 at this time. So we'll see, and when we met with Jordan, it was, prior to their tax collection day, prior to budget being fleshed out in full. But he basically said, at this point in time, we're looking at using 21 as a COVID budget, and we're not going to be providing much capital, and we're not going to be doing a fire truck for sure in 21. He said, we can't commit to 22 at this point in time. So what we've done with this 375, it's going to sit in our bank account, and we're going to allocate it to the engine. If something comes up, certainly council at any time can choose to reallocate that 375. It's just from our planning purposes, we're gonna set aside that 375 for an engine when the time comes that Special Areas is able to move forward with us. And if that means they are going to contribute for 2023, we would probably start the process in 2022 because it's generally a year-long process. And we would start the process in 2022 and we would probably deal with the initial first $375,000 when you put your deposits in your chassis order, and then Special Areas would pay the last half. But they would have to commit to their share before we would start the process. The earliest, we've got it in 21 identified. If things went really, really well, and I guess holding out hope that Special Areas may then come say, okay, things are better than what we thought they were, we'll be ready to commit for 2022, then we would probably start the process in 2021, and they'd put their part in 2022, and we'd have the truck in 2022. So we're just kind of allocating that 375 for the engine right now.
Fire Chief Mo said it, if the latter, from what you just described, starting the process in 21, it may just require a deposit, and the town may have to put that up, might be 10%, or whatever it happens to be, so.
But we're not
That's
moving
right.
forward until such time as Special Areas is able to confirm that their number is when they can commit to, whether it's 22, whether it's 23, whether it's 24. I don't know. At this point, they're not able to commit to funding their share.
And that's when we have. that
Yes.
line, right?
And so this is for a brand new one?
Yes.
There's no use that can be, has this one been upgraded?
No,
to
they,
account for some stuff, or-
we've been operating on a 20-year life cycle. So this one,
That's for recommendation.
that's the NFPA recommendation is 20 years. We're not saying right now that it's a piece of crap and it's not gonna be able to respond, but I know last year we blew out the water pump on the way home. You know, if we would have blew out the water pump on the way to the rescue, the truck wouldn't go out there.
No, that could have happened to something.
Well, it can still happen to a brand
Yeah,
new one.
And the
yeah.
more you start replacing, the more typical.
Yeah, so Fire Chief Mole, very passionate about this, and like I said, we've had meetings with Special Areas. We just want to allocate those dollars now, and we might not spend them for 2 years. We don't know, at least we got allocated versus coming in 2022 or 2023, and we got to come up with 375,000. So, but I'm not saying that 375 cannot be reallocated at any time if something urgent came along that we needed to bump the engine. So we've got it in there right now as that.
Is there any value in the old one?
I think David believes there is some value in there. I would
wasn't-
say 40,
It wasn't-
50,000.
Not a lot.
Not compared to.
Not compared to
but I-
750.
Yeah, like 40, 50 or something like that.
Would it be that much? Probably.
Well, he thinks it, he was, I think my discussion with him, the buyers, sellers of these new ones thought you might get 35, 40 out of it, but I think David thought it's in better shape than that, they might be able to get 50,
Okay.
but again, it's one of those things with fire, used is not a word that is used often.
Yeah, well, I didn't know, so that's why.
Yeah, no, it's not.
We-
They
we
usually-
have- we
They
have
usually
had-
run them for 20 years, whatever their lifespan is, and then nobody, sometimes you'll get, like our last one went to
Special Areas to.
Jenner,
Yeah.
Empress or Jenner?
Empress
Empress.
Jenner, bought Empress.
Yeah, so they used it in one of their rural fire departments. because
And
they
Dave already,
Didn't need it,
Better than,
He-
what we need.
Dave even talked about this rescue truck. There was a smaller municipality within the Special Areas already looking for something like that.
Yeah, whether it's Jenner or one of the smaller ones, so it would be an improvement to what they had.
And he did say a lot of the calls to are in the rural area, and what we have now is just 2-wheel drive, and he said 4-wheel drive is necessary, so. I mean, it's an upgrade, it just blows me away the
Cost.
the cost of these things.
Especially,
Well, and the other thing with fire too, that's interesting and, you know, traditionally, fire departments keep their equipment in very good shape. And it's always clean, it's always polished, it's always shiny, so, you know, it looks really good. So when you do replace, people go, why are you replacing that? Look at it, it looks so good. Well, it's 20 years old. Oh, really? So we've got that in there right now, council. Moving on, animal control, we've left it at $5,000 contribution to the SPCA. Common services, pretty standard. We've got our grader lease, we've got $100,000 in for sidewalk replacement. We've got $30,000 for asphalt patches. We have reduced our gravel purchase by $15,000, and you'll see in the capital, we've got one of those screens,
Oh, right.
which is about 15, so to use the millings. We do have back in the 12th Avenue street light. We took it out last year. It's in now. Like I said, that street has been there for 30 years, 40 years.
Late 70s.
I don't know.
So
40, it is.
but when you go by there, until you bring it to your attention, you don't really notice. But the street light on 12th, the last one ends up kind of on where the houses, where the fourplexes are, and there's nothing on that corner. Again, it's been 30, 40 years and we haven't had any issues. So that, we brought it back in, is certainly for council to choose whether they want to. The other thing we have in that's new is our hydrovac needs the pump rebuilt. So that's our flusher truck, hydrovac truck. So we've got $10,000 in for that. Airport, we replaced, there's 2 furnaces in there. We replaced one in 2019. We replaced the air conditioner that services the upstairs in 2020. And there's one furnace there, probably from when the building was built, that services the basement. So we're looking to replace it. I have talked to Brent, and we're really looking at where we're at dollar-wise in 2020. We might be able to squeeze, if we think we can squeeze it in, we might go ahead and order that in 2020 and get it in, and then that would free up that 5,000 for 2021. So water supply, again, based on our 3-year average, which has decreased our use, and it does include the cost increase from Henry Kruger. We have increased our water repair costs by $10,800 to $30,000. So we are having, even though we've fixed a section, we are continuing to have water breaks, water leaks. And the costs are, you know, we're going to be over our budget this year, but it's one of those things that we want to get it in the ballpark. Like, we don't say we're not fixing that because we're over budget, but we want it to be realistic. So
it's at 22 now, or yeah.
it's at 30 now.
So it's increased
Increased by 10.8
to 48 then?
no, to 30.
230. So
Yeah.
last year, that's what I mean. Last year
Was 18.
18.
And we had continue with the transfer to reserve, $50,000 annually to reserves to build up our water supply system reserve. Sanitary sewer, pretty much standard. We didn't get our line flushing completed this year, so we're going to carry forward that money and bring it back and hope to do $37,000 worth of flushing and video inspection. Manhole repairs, that's kind of what our operation number has been. It's been 20,000, so we're continuing with that. Lift station inspections and maintenance, we've increased that by 7,500 just based on what's been happening out. Our lift station our main lift station is now 10 years old, and we're seeing some more repairs on it. Yeah, were you on council when you built it?
Yes. Let's keep going.
So we've increased that by 7,500, and again, we have 50,000 added to the operating reserve on the sanitary sewer side.
Question, so there's a lift station over here where we could do some stuff with the pump and is that all taken care of?
The second one, the one on Second Avenue?
No, wasn't there one, like,
right?
There's one behind here,
Yeah,
little igloos
igloo,
back
yeah.
here, yeah.
Is that all?
Yeah.
Like, I know we had to put some, yeah, I know.
And what we did there
issues
too,
with that, yeah.
we got rid of the power to it and we strung the power to this building.
Oh, okay.
So it's fed by this building. And the other positive here is this building has a full generator.
Oh,
So if the power goes off, the generator kicks in, so that we don't have to worry about that lift station because it's able to pump.
Yeah.
Second Ave, we've done some work on it. The little red brick one we
Right,
call it
yeah,
on Second
yeah,
Ave.
yeah.
We put a new pump in and impeller in this year on it. And we've also got it wired now so that we can, if we're in a prolonged outage, we can bring a small generator and plug it into there and flip the switch and it'll run that. So we don't have to keep running back there with a lift truck to suck the tank dry. We've got it so we can hook it up. We've got a generator, small generator that works for it assigned to it, so. And then our main lift one the VIC has a generator, so it's on automatically as well, so.
I just couldn't remember.
Yeah, there's a
I knew
little
there's-
igloo one
there's
here
a
that
little bit
serves
of-
kind of the industrial area.
All right, good.
And I think those houses along Palliser Trail, it all kind of, I think, comes down here in front of the old public workshop and runs into there, so. So garbage collection, everything stays the same. The contract is till 2022. Regional waste, we talked about it, it's at 301. It's the same level as before. FCSS, we've left the program development side at the same amount. So these are kind of some of the guidelines we've used on how that money's been allocated, some of the big ones. Commercial office building, we talked about, so that's the business hub. We operates on a break-even basis. Business and communication, a couple of changes there. We've always had, it used to be 10,000, then it was dropped to 5. We always called it extra marketing publications, dollars available in case somebody was doing something and we were able to partner, we'd have a little bit of money there to partner. We haven't used it for a while, so I've reduced it in this year's budget from 5 to 2,500. And I've done that because Cactus Corridors request it $2,500 more, so they're asking for 42.5 versus the 40. So then our number is still the same. At the end of the day, there's still $45,000 there. We've got some money in for banner replacements. That'll be an annual thing. Some kiosks, I know we still want to get a few more up and available. It hasn't been a real high requirement for them in 2020 because of COVID and so many events have been canceled and not going on. And there's not the same need to do that. And Palliser Economic Partnership, it's small, but their membership increases another 10 cents. No, 20 cents. No, 10 cents, $260, $25.59, yeah, $260. So it's be $3,300 will be our contribution. I know, looking at Councillor Olson, I don't think Councillor Bowden's had been to a meeting, but they're in a bit of a turmoil in terms of Rita money has been reduced from the province. I think the City of Medicine Hat is still looking to pull out, which is their biggest funder. So I imagine there's lots of discussions going on about how, what money we're gonna have left available and how we're gonna utilize it, so.
Long-term vision of Palliser is much shorter than it used to be, I think.
Yeah.
We're being pretty realistic.
Yeah.
Especially when Hannah, for example, and we have different options now for more targeted economic development. I mean, they're doing a lot of big picture things with just selling the product and value-added product and making connections for people, but we also have the ability to do that here now, more so than we did in the past. It's changed for them.
Yeah.
They've been around a while.
And all these things are all provincially driven programs. I mean,
Maybe bad.
Canadian Bad, the same thing, right? The government says, hey, let's get you going, and then they start pulling funding, and then what are you supposed to do? Where's that money supposed to come from?
So just so we're still obviously recommending that we stay in. Again, visitor information center, assuming operation as pre-COVID. So that's 52.5. I think we budgeted 17 or 18 if the building is closed. So it, you know, it does.
It's relative to.
It does,
to-
but probably still does cost us a bit to operate the visitor information center than leave it closed, even though we're getting $19,000 in revenue, so. Recreation, again, just travel training, back to pre-COVID levels. So it's $5,600 in their area, and that's pretty much the arena staff, all the community services staff, so the office staff and the operators. Special areas events, this is what we've done, and so as I mentioned before, so this $90,000 will be a transfer to reserve. So now that we're actually getting that additional 90 from special areas in 2021, the thought was we need to take that 90,000 and put it in reserve so that down the road, if we have to do some major upgrades or do something major on the recreation side, at least we've got, you know, a pot of dollars. Because over 5 years, that's $450,000 if we're able to continue to allocate that money there. And I think we're pretty decent shape. You know, the community center is still the community center, and I know we did move forward on the major upgrade, and I know there's still interest in doing some different things there that will cost money. The arena, again, decent shape, curling, decent shape, but they're 40 years old.
Like you talked, I mean.
Yeah.
That's just the concrete, just the.
If you had to replace the pad, it'd be $1 million. So, and I said to people, you know, if something happened to our arena and we couldn't operate it and we wanted to build a new one, that arena curling complex now is probably, I would guess, 15 million, 20 million to build that now in today's dollars. So, you know, this 90,000 isn't gonna do that, but at least you're putting some away and you have some there at the end of the day to, councils can decide how they want to allocate. So, where were we at there? So pool operation pre-COVID, arena assume full operation is pre-COVID. We do have an increase in 21 and 22 on the ice plant because those 2 years we do overhauls on the compressor, one each year. This year, 2020 was our year off because we've got 2 compressors and they need to be done every 3 years. So arena power will be interesting to see where we're at. We've left it at 3-year average right now, but I'm hoping that as we move forward, we start to see some of the bills and the difference that maybe we'll see some significant changes there. I know we will over this stuff on the ice surface. Curling rink, assuming full operation pre-COVID again. Fox Lake Campground, that's our overall cost to operate. We are planning to operate on the same time frame as we did in 2020. So we used to open May 1st and go to September 30th. And sometimes on the fringe sides, we felt it wasn't worth operating. So we moved now from May 15th to September 15th, and it saved us a month of contracting staff to do that. So the one thing this budget doesn't include at this point in time is Helmer Dam water study phase 2. Our plan is to, Councillor Jensen had shared it with us the other day. So looks like they're having another round of grant applications that are available in January of 21. So I think the goal is to apply for funding from there to get more money and do a further phase. They're still completing first phase. They're going to do their winter testing this winter, but it would be another year of study. So we don't have anything in on either side. So we're basically leaving it as right now as grant dependent.
Is there any thought to putting a little bit of money aside per year? Like, because after this is all done, 3-year study, as we mentioned, that would be significant dollars needed to do whatever is recommended.
There may be, Councillor Jensen. I guess that